Hey, before we dive into today's episode, I want to quickly invite you to something I have never offered before. If you want to start the year feeling strong, supported, and confident in your body during pregnancy or after birth, this is for you. Simply share this podcast episode to your Instagram stories, tag me at kathbequee.physio, and I'll DM you a free month valued at $47. There is no catch. Inside, you'll find home-based physio-led workouts to support pregnancy, prepare your body for birth, and boost your postnatal recovery. So share the episode, tag me, and I'll send you your free month valued at $47. All right, let's get into today's episode. Welcome to the Pregnancy, Birth and Recovery podcast, the place where you learn how to prepare your body for birth and recover well afterwards. I am Kath Bequee. I'm a pelvic floor physiotherapist, mum of 3, and founder of Fitness Mama. Each week, I share practical, evidence-based tips to help you feel strong in your body, confident and supported, whether or not you're pregnant, preparing for birth, or navigating life and recovery after having a baby. From pelvic floor and core rehab to birth preparation to returning to exercise safely and boosting your postpartum recovery, this podcast is your guide to a healthier, more empowered and stronger pregnancy and postpartum recovery journey. So let's dive in. Hello, welcome back to the Pregnancy, Birth and Recovery podcast. So here's the thing, I'm a physiotherapist. I've had 3 children. And in reflection, I wanted to, start this year off discussing 3 important things that I feel I misunderstood or didn't give enough consideration to when it came to pregnancy, birth and recovery. So I have been a physiotherapist for, I was 29 when I got pregnant with my first, who, this is giving away my age now, my biggest baby is now 13 years old. So before that point, I'd been working as a physiotherapist since the age of 22, graduate uni. So I'd been a physio for around 7 years, mostly in the musculoskeletal and a bit of neurological physio. I'd always worked part-time as a women's health physio doing Pilates. I just loved women's health physio. From a young, tender age of 22, I had been working, helping support women to exercise during pregnancy and postpartum. But it wasn't until I was pregnant with my first, or it wasn't until the birth of my first that I realized, oh my God, I know nothing. I knew nothing about my body and just the profound change that happens with pregnancy and birth and recovery. So my biggest, moment that I really was so aware that and this is again as a physiotherapist, but my all-time. So I guess the biggest humbling moment was after the birth of my first baby. I had been pretty strong during pregnancy. I think I prided myself on staying strong and doing my Pilates classes and lots of walks. With my first pregnancy, I have to admit it was pretty easy for me. I didn't have nausea. I didn't have any pelvic girdle pain. I thought, you know what, exercising during pregnancy, this is easy. Stay with me. My second pregnancy was a totally different story. But with my first pregnancy, I was like, wow, this is fun. This is great. I feel good. I feel strong. Birth came along, which is a whole different topic I won't talk about today. It was a vaginal birth. It was very quick. It was a bit too quick, but anyway, we won't go into that. But after birth, again, I felt pretty good. I felt like, you know what, this recovery, got this down pat, did some pelvic floor exercises, definitely felt weak in the pelvic floor, but didn't give it a second thought. I did some little walks around with my husband when he was on parental leave at the time. I didn't really think too much about my recovery because it was happening easily for me. I didn't have the abdominal muscle separation. I think genetics on my side. I thought, pretty cool. However, at about 3 weeks after birth, I went for my longest walk yet. If you've listened to this podcast, you've probably heard this story. But I caught up with a friend at the local cafe. And at the time, we lived in a suburban area in Melbourne, lots of cafes all around, and organised to meet like about a 15-minute walk from home. So not a long walk. I got the pram prepared. I got everything I needed for the feeds. I timed my feeding to perfection because I was not confident breastfeeding in public. And so I made sure I'd fed the bubs beforehand. It was sort of my first solo outing. Got the pram packed and off I went. I walked the 10-15 minutes to the cafe. I had a coffee, which was amazing. Bubs started getting irritable, so I thought, you know what, time to get her home and fed. I think I really quickly ducked in for some milk and bread at the local IGA, the local supermarket, and I went home. So at this stage, I'd been up and about and moving and walking and sitting and standing for about 2 to 3 hours after I'd walked there, had my coffee, walked home. And I could take you there today. I remember the exact moment walking down the hill. I was about 50 meters from home, 30 meters from home, when I suddenly felt, as I described to my husband later, it's like my insides falling out of me. I felt a huge pelvic floor heaviness. I felt like there was a ton of bricks sitting on top of my pelvic floor. I felt weakness in my pelvic floor. I couldn't lift up the muscles anymore. I couldn't do that activation through the pelvic floor muscles. And I thought, oh my God, I need like this profound sense of heaviness, and I needed to have a lie down. And I felt like I just couldn't walk any further. And that was my real wake up moment. And I was embarrassed. It was a while ago now, but I was embarrassed. I was a physiotherapist. I'd been strong during pregnancy. I'd felt like I was on top of the world and had this whole physical recovery thing sorted. And then I had this profound huge sense of heaviness, and I knew that was prolapse symptoms that I was experiencing. And I was embarrassed. I was like, oh my God, how could this be happening? Like, I had a good birth. I was strong. I've been, careful in my recovery. But it made me, and this is coming to my first point of today, birth changes your body. And recovery doesn't happen automatically. And in hindsight, I'd been a bit full of myself. You don't know what you don't know, but I thought I had it all covered, and I didn't appreciate what my body had been through to push out a baby. And whether or not you've had a vaginal birth or a cesarean birth, this applies, because whether or not you have a vaginal or a cesarean birth, your birth changes your body. Pregnancy changes your body, and recovery doesn't happen automatically. And this is when I was like, wow, I know nothing. And I then proceeded to go back to university to do postgraduate training in pelvic floor rehab and women's health. Because I was like, oh my God, like, what have I done? How could I have done this when I thought I had a pretty good foundation being a physiotherapist? But nope. Anyway, that was the first, I guess, wake-up call. And this is one of the pillars that I base my online workout app for pregnancy and postpartum. It's it's exactly that. Birth changes your body and recovery doesn't happen automatically. And even if and I've got the air quotation marks here, you've bounced back, even if you feel strong, you might have genetics on your side, your body is still different. Your body has changed, and your body deserves to be invested in after you've invested so much into producing your beautiful baby. We invest everything into producing our beautiful baby. And you know what? I wouldn't change it for the world. I do it 3 times over. Best thing that I've ever done is have my babies. But when we spend so much time and energy, and I guess we're putting our body on the line to have our babies, and it's beautiful. But I think we also need to honor ourselves enough to then think, I'm going to invest back into my body after I've had my baby, or during pregnancy preferably. I'm going to reinvest back into my body, because we've got our bodies for the rest of our life. And so often as a physiotherapist, as a women's health physio, I see women who hit menopause, and menopause is, again, when we more likely to run into issues with our pelvic health. But so many times women have said to me, I wish I had done something sooner. I wish I had done the proper recovery after I'd had my babies. Because, I could keep talking about this all day, and I won't. But that is the number one thing for today. And then taking a step back, and let's dive more into the pregnancy side of things. And this really hit home after the birth of my first bubs, and I became pregnant with my second bubs, and I was riddled with pelvic girdle pain. It went back to the fact that I felt recovery was happening automatically. Sure, I was doing exercises, I was feeling strong, but there's so many reasons why women might suffer from pelvic girdle pain. For me, it was a whole concoction. I was moving house when I was quite heavily pregnant, so bending and lifting and pottering and cleaning, and despite family members and my husband saying, don't do that, Catherine, don't lift, you're pregnant, let me do it, let me help, I still did. You can't help yourself, right? It's like you go into a nesting mode. And on top of that, I had a toddler, a very active, she was 18 months at the time, and running around with the toddler. I was still recovering after the birth of my first bubs, and my body wasn't as strong as it was pre-babies. My pelvic floor wasn't as strong as it was. I was feeling stiff and sore from all the months of breastfeeding and carrying bubs, and posturally I hadn't been working on all those important muscle groups. And I became riddled with pelvic girdle pain so bad that for a few weeks I couldn't walk. I was embarrassed. I was like, oh my God, I've now specialized in women's health. I have gone on to do this postgraduate training in pelvic floor rehab. I am officially women's health physiotherapist, and here I am unable to walk, and I couldn't bear it. I also found it extremely difficult to go and see my colleagues at the women's health clinic I worked at, because I had my toddler with me all the time, and getting her to the clinic, having an appointment, wrestling her into her car seat, getting her from the car into the clinic and finding a car park. And in the clinic, she'd be lifting up everything and ransacking the clinic and taking things off the shelves. And it was all too stressful. I'd have my treatment session and come back home exhausted. And it was another light bulb into producing the app that I've got today, the Fitness Mama app, because I wanted to provide pregnancy girdle pain workouts to help women feel strong, help recover from pelvic girdle pain, help to manage their pelvic girdle pain from home, because I know there's a time and a place where getting outside the house is hard. And I live in metropolitan Melbourne, in a city where going to a clinic should be relatively easy. I don't live regionally, rurally, and I know there's so many women who just don't have the services they need. And sadly, gyms, personal trainers, I love them. I visit them all the time. But exercising during pregnancy, it's a unique time of our lives. And especially if we've got pelvic girdle pain or pelvic floor issues, I really think it needs specialized attention. Anyway, it got me thinking about the second pillar that I base my whole program on. We train for everything in life except birth. If you were to do a marathon, you would train for that for weeks and months, if not years, in the lead up. We train for our Saturday basketball or netball game. We train every single week for that game. But how many of us actually train and put in the effort during pregnancy to help with our birth recovery outcomes? And there's one thing that research tells us, it's one of the best things we can be doing during pregnancy to help support our postnatal birth recovery outcomes is to actually exercise. Exercising during pregnancy helps our pelvic floor recovery. It helps our whole body recovery. It helps us get stronger sooner after birth. And this is where, when I had the pelvic girdle pain during my second pregnancy, I totally realized how hard it was to exercise. I was tired. I was a mother running around with the toddler. I was exhausted. I was in pain. And the thought of going for a walk, I just couldn't because it was too painful. Thought of exercising was so much harder than it was during my first pregnancy. But this is also a time when our body needs different things. So I implore you, if you're finding it hard to exercise during pregnancy, rather than give up and stop, which can have a slippery slope, it can affect your mental health, it can affect our confidence, it can affect our extra weight gain, it can affect every facet of our life. I know when I exercise, I feel better in my mental health. I feel happier. It releases the endorphins and those feel-good hormones. And when I couldn't exercise during my second pregnancy, my mental health deteriorated big time. Plus the pain and the sleep deprivation and the not being able to go out with your friends because it's just too painful to go to the cafe to catch up for a coffee, and the slippery slope occurs. So if you're finding it difficult to exercise during pregnancy, I implore you to find something that helps to nurture and nourish your body for where it's at. And this is what I've endeavored to do with Fitness Mama. Whether or not you need nausea-friendly workouts, pelvic girdle pain-friendly workouts, beautiful stretches for 5 minutes in the sun, there's even 5 minutes can make a big difference as into how we're feeling mentally, physically, emotionally, and all the works. And again, I could talk all day about this, but I will stop because there's one more, pillar I want to discuss, and that's leaking when you sneeze, pain with sex, feeling heavy or unstable, pelvic floor concerns that a lot of women do get postpartum and after birth. So many women are told, it's just part of motherhood, or they hear from their friends that, oh yeah, I've leaked ever since giving birth, or it's just considered normal. But in physio, when something affects our function, our comfort, our confidence, we don't call that normal. And there's so much that can be done to help support you. So if you are suffering with pain or leaking or heaviness or painful sex or feeling unstable or not feeling strong like you want to be feeling, reach out to your local pelvic floor physio or come and join us inside Fitness Mama, because there's so much that can be done to help you. So that's it, ladies. I think we'll leave it with those 3 pillars. Pillar number 1 that I mentioned is birth changes your body, and recovery doesn't happen automatically. The second point we discussed was we train for everything. We train for marathons, we train for our local netball game, whatever it might be, but we don't train for birth. And I really think we should. And when I say train, I don't mean going out and doing a million push-ups and, sit-ups and burpees and all the rest. I mean, do what we need to support our body for pregnancy, birth, and recovery. And then the number 3 is if you've got any concerns, any weakness, any pain, please seek help. So that's it, ladies. Have a fabulous day. If you want to come and join our free 7-day trial, nothing to lose, everything to gain, head to fitnessmama.com. It has everything to help exercise safely, confidently during pregnancy. It has everything to help prepare your body and pelvic floor for birth and to help support a strong postpartum recovery. Everything from 0 to 6 weeks postpartum to months and months down the track, even helping you to get back into running and high impact exercise safely. So it can be that stepping stone to getting back into the gym or whatever it is you want to get back into doing. That's it, ladies. Have a fabulous day. I look forward to hearing from you. Send me an Instagram message at kathbequee.physio. Have a fabulous day and catch you next time. Thanks for listening to the Pregnancy, Birth and Recovery podcast brought to you by Fitness Mama, your app for home-based, physio-led pregnancy and postnatal workouts. If you found this episode helpful, please tap follow, leave a quick review and share it to your stories. Tag at kathbequee.physio. I'd love to connect and cheer you on. And don't forget to check out the free trial at fitnessmama.com/free to start feeling confident, strong and supported today. Until next time, remember, a strong body, a confident birth and empowered recovery is something you deserve. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not a substitute for individual medical advice, diagnosis or treatment. Please consult your healthcare provider for your personalised guidance.